Welcome to Electronline. Well, the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, there it is. The first time ever we have pictures from the surface of Venus because of Venera 9. Venera 9 was able to successfully land and turn on its cameras. Unfortunately, even though there were two cameras, only one of them was functional because the second camera could not get rid of the lens cap. In other words, it wasn't the camera trying to get rid of the lens cap. The mechanism to try to remove the lens cap failed. They had several more failures after that, unfortunately, until they figured out how not to have that problem. Luckily, one of the two cameras worked and we were able to get a panoramic view of about 180 degrees in one direction. Unfortunately, we didn't know what the other direction looked like, but we could presume that it wasn't all that different from the side that we were able to look at. So here you can actually see a very nice panoramic view. I'm sure that from your vantage point it's hard to see. These pictures don't have very good resolution. You can see some mountains in the background. Here, that's the same picture here, but then there's and if you go to the right, you can see that there were not nearly as many boulders in this direction. It was kind of flat with more like lava-like flat rocks on the surface. The size of the boulders here was about 30 to 40 centimeters to kind of put things in perspective, which is about a foot across. What was amazing was that they actually landed on a slope of about 20 degrees, which is amazing that the spacecraft did not fall over. They were able to settle down on a 20-degree slope. And with all those boulders there, well, and again, it was a success. Now, another picture that we have here we didn't see before was this shield made out of very strong material. Then here you can see a cutaway of what that spacecraft looks like inside. It's a marvelous engineering feat for mechanical engineering to somehow put that spacecraft inside that spherical shell, which protected us as it entered the very thick atmosphere at very high velocities. Now notice that it was launched on June 8, 1975, and about 3 months later, it landed on the surface. There were some additional firsts. The orbiter, for the first time, we had actually an orbiter around the planet Venus that communicated with the lander. So that way the lander did not have to communicate directly to the Earth, but could communicate to the orbiter, who then would have a much more powerful battery to be able to communicate the signal to Earth. There's only one problem with that, is since it's an orbiter, you can only communicate with the orbiter when it's in the line of sight. Once the orbiter goes over the horizon, all communication stopped, and by the time the orbiter came back around, the lander was already dead and could no longer communicate. So notice, first images from the surface. Unfortunately, one of the lens caps could not be removed. Notice that as they came in at an initial speed of 10.7 kilometers per second, which is roughly the escape speed of Venus, it slowed down to 150 meters per second and encased in the shell. So the shell was it was aerodynamically shaped in such a way that it would take maximum advantage of slowing the lander down to a speed of about 150 meters per second. 150 meters per second, well, let's see here. That's that's about 500 kilometers per hour, about 300 miles per hour. And at that point, and notice what is really noteworthy, the mass of the shell is 1,560 kilograms. Well, that's the mass of a medium-sized car. It's an enormous amount of mass, and that's why it's so difficult to get that spacecraft up in orbit around or towards, moving towards Venus. Notice that the lander was significantly less in mass compared to the shell. Imagine that, the shell was more than twice the mass of the lander. Now the parachute slowed the lander down to about 50 meters per second down to a height of about 63 kilometers, which is kind of interesting. So unusually so compared to the previous landers, they started deploying the parachute sooner and they want to slow it down to about 180 kilometers per hour or 110 miles per hour, which is about 50 meters per second, before they reach that thick cloud layer. That way they were able to spend 20 minutes descending through that cloud layer, where they were able to measure that the clouds were made out of sulfuric acid. The parachute was then released at an elevation of about 50 kilometers. I guess they had to make that parachute out of material that could withstand that sulfuric acid inundation. All right, so we have a ring-shaped aerodynamic shield. So notice at the bottom we have the ring-shaped shield. We have another shield over there. Both of those shields help slow the spacecraft down, the lander down, while it was traveling through that heavy, heavy atmosphere without the aid of a parachute. So that was designed in such a way that the spacecraft could actually slow down in that formation coming down. So by the time it finally touched down, it was only going at 7 meters per second. Usain Bolt can run faster than that. So you can imagine it's quite a bit slower than it was when it had a crash landing. Now, they also used a hollow ring, even at 7 meters per second. Well, that's, let's see, 7 meters per second, that's about close to 25 kilometers per hour. That's still moving relatively fast for an object hitting a hard surface. But they designed the hollow ring at the very bottom of the spacecraft, the very bottom of the lander there, to absorb that shock so that it would actually crush in, kind of like the way they built the front end of a car, to absorb the momentum of the spacecraft so that even at 7 meters per second, you could have what we call a semi-soft landing, so to speak. All right, now the light level. Again, the light level on Venus is surprisingly bright because of that enormously thick surface, atmosphere. And because of the very thick cloud cover, it's still amazingly bright at 14,000 lux. 14,000 lux means 14,000 lumens per square meter, which is about the same as the cloudy day on Earth. So even though it's closer to the sun, Venus, so you'd expect to get about twice as much solar radiation, the daytime light situation is about the same as it is on Earth during a cloudy day. So we had 53 minutes of transmission from the surface until the orbiter was out of range. So that's one of the things when you use an orbiter to transmit the signal from the lander to the orbiter and then from the orbiter to the Earth. Once the orbiter is over the horizon, you can no longer communicate. We did detect some new particles or gases in the atmosphere. We found hydrochloric acid gas, we found hydrofluoric gas, bromine, and iodine all in the atmosphere. I'm not so sure if that was in a gaseous format. At that temperature, it was probably in a gaseous format. Hydrochloric acid, hydrofluoric acid, bromine, and iodine at those enormous temperatures were probably in gaseous form. So the new instruments they brought on board the lander, they've had a backscatter and multi-angled nephelometer. Wow, what's a nephelometer? It's an instrument that measures the size and the concentration of suspended particles in the atmosphere. So they want to see what kind of atmospheric dust was there. They're able to measure that. They had a mass spectrometer to identify the different elements in the atmosphere, and they had a gamma ray spectrometer and densitometer, so to also be able to calculate the emissions, the radioactive emissions from radioactive materials that would be found on the surface. Notice that the temperature measured at the surface was a whopping 485 degrees centigrade, or 485 degrees Celsius, as we say, and that is equivalent to 905 degrees Fahrenheit. That's by far the highest temperature ever recorded on the surface of Venus to that point. The pressure about close to 91 times the atmospheric pressure on the Earth. So notice that typically the temperature on the surface of Venus is thought to be about 465, so these readings were definitely higher than the current estimated temperature on the surface. But again, these temperatures had a plus or minus of about 20 degrees Celsius, so that puts it right about at the edge of the current accepted value for the temperature on the surface of Venus. Quite high still. And so you can see that now that we have these pictures of the surface of Venus, it's an amazing sight. Be able to see that, to see mountains in the distance. This looks just like a very, very dry desert on the Earth, strewn with boulders. And then we have these, what look like lava plains, and there's plenty of places on the Earth where we see similar kind of surface. Of course, most of the time there's vegetation and life. None of that to be found on the surface of Venus. So you see that Venera 9 opened up our eyes to what the surface of Venus looked like, and it was absolutely amazing. Quite a feat to be able to pull that off. And that is how it was done with Venera 9.